Hi, in this tutorial I'm going to share with you the step-by-step method that you can use to set up a Wix form in your Wix website. Now I'm pretty sure that you already have a Wix form set up on your website, but if you're looking to add some more features to it and understand the complexities of it, then this is the right video for you. Now there are several forms and there are several things that you can use them for. But in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use them for a contact form. And I'm also going to show you how to set it up so that whenever a customer or a site user submits the form, you're going to receive a copy of the site submission. And they are also going to receive a thank you message for submitting the form, letting them know that you're going to get back to them. So stay with me to the very end to see all the features that you can implement into your Wix form. Now, before we get started with adding the Wix form and setting up automation, I'm Walter and this is Wix Ideas. In this channel, you're going to learn a lot about setting up Wix and Wix Studio websites. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please don't forget to do so and also leave this video a thumbs up. You can also leave me a comment in the comment section if you have any questions or any contributions about Wix forms. Now, without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and get started. Now, as you can see from this very section here, the add element, we have here the contact and forms. And here we have the ability to create a new form or to add an existing form. Now, if you don't have a form already, then creating a new form is the best bet for you. And here we also have pre-made forms that Wix has already put in place for you, just to give you a guide on what you can use these forms for. Now for us, we're going to start from scratch. So I'm going to be explaining to you how to make use of most of the elements and how to set up your form for conversion. Now to get started, I'm going to head to the contact us page. So head over to pages and menu, and we're going to head over to the contact us page. Now this is a template website, which means that I don't have any contact form already set. However, there is a position or a place for me to add a form right here. Now if you want to add this particular form to your website, you're going to head back to the add elements, over to contacts and forms, and then go ahead and create a new form or drag and drop any of these forms onto your page. Now, since I already have one on my page, I'm going to go ahead and edit form. And when you click on that, it's going to bring out a pop-up. And this is where we are going to design and configure our form. As you can see, this is a blank form and we don't have anything yet on it. On my left, you can see that we have the add, which is the add elements or the fields that we can add to our form. And the first one is the contacts, where we have the first name, last name, email field, phone, birthday, address, and many more. And we also have the general field, where we have the short answers, long answers, numbers, up to links, signatures, star ratings, and choices. We have single choice, multi-choice, drop downs, tag, checkboxes, and so many more. And we have the dates, we have the payment. So if you want to accept payments with the form, or you have a product, or you have a custom price, you want people to be able to just pay directly with your form, then these are the right elements to use. And we have the button, which is the submit button, and we have the layout elements, which are the header and the text. So I'm going to show you how to add all of this. And here we have rules. So rules are basically conditional logics that you want to automate in your form. So when a user fills out a form, probably you want to do something on the other input element and so on. And then we have pages right here. So if you want to have, different steps or different pages on your form, you want them to click on next and go to a different page on that particular form. And you don't want to have a very long form that contains all the details that you want them to fill out in a single page. Then this is the right place to add a new page where they can go to a next page and fill out different information based on the category. Now on the top, we have the ability to go back to forms. And when you head back to the forms, now this is a free form. You can see we have 25 forms to create for our website. And you create a new form, you're going to find it right here. So let's head back to create form where we were. And this is going to bring us back to our form. And here we can edit the name of our form. And this is going to bring us to the settings. And here we can change this to say contact form. That's going to change the name of your form. And here we have the required field style. Now, if you want to have, when a field is required, if you want to show an asterisk, or you want to show a label that says required, or you want to say none. Now, it's always recommended to have either the asterisk or the label, but I want to leave it at the asterisk. And you can also decide to have the asterisk before field title or after the field title. Now we're going to come back to the rest of the settings once we have configured our form. So let's head back to edit, and here we're going to go ahead and start adding in our details. Now the first thing we want to add is the first name. When you add the first name, it's going to pop up something on the right. So as you can see, we have a general setting for the field name, and here you can go ahead and change what this name says. So for one, we can just say first name with the uppercase, something like that, and we can make it a required field. That means that the user must fill out this field before they can submit this form. Another thing they can do is to add a placeholder text, which is a text or label inside of the input element, giving them a hint about what needs to go into this form. Now lastly, you can also go ahead and enable the field description. This is where you say this name will be used to address you in the newsletter. Now this is not required, but as you can see, you can go ahead and highlight this and beautify that by making it bold, italic, or underlined, or even adding a link to it. And the link could be an external link, or it could be a section on your form, but we're not going to be doing any of that, so let's just go ahead and remove it. Now this is completely up to you, but I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the field description. I think it's too many information for the form field. And then lastly, we have the advanced. So here you can limit the number of characters that need to go into this field. You might go ahead and check that and set the minimum at least 1. So that means that the user needs to enter at least 1 word before they can continue, or they can add up to 5,000 words. I basically don't think this is necessary, so I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. And here you can see we have the field key, which is the ID of this field that you use in your coding. For this tutorial, we're not going to code, so that's not necessary. And as you can see, we have this menu option that allows us to drag this element around, and it also allows us to have the settings and hide this field if we don't want it to show up in the front end. All right, so let's go ahead and add our last name field, which is about the same thing as our first name field, and you can go ahead and customize if you want it to be required. We don't need the last to be required, we only need the first name and the email to be required eventually. But we also want to show the placeholder. We don't need the field description, and we're also going to leave the advanced as is. Now what I want to do is to have these two fields on the same line. So let's go ahead and probably shorten that to half, and then drag these elements next to our first name field. Now as you can see, we have them side by side, and you can also click on this to preview how it would look like on the front end. Now let's go back to edit, and here we're going to go ahead and drag and drop our email. Now you can also make sure that the email is required. We have a placeholder, enter your email, and you can also go ahead and add a field description. I'm not going to do that, and there is nothing for us to do at the advanced level. Now we have more things to add, such as the phone number, the birthday, the address, the multi-line address, the subscribe, and company name, position, VAT ID. Now these are things that we don't really need right now. Now depending on what your form is about, you can go in and check all these fields and look for what elements that you actually need for this particular field. Now I'm going to scroll all the way down to the layout elements, and I'm going to go ahead and drag the header, and here I'm going to edit text. I'm going to change it to say contact information. Now you can also go ahead and add a text, and this is going to be a short description that says please fill out or required field. And as you can see over here, we have different options to beautify this by aligning them, making them a list, or even changing them to any kind of paragraph or heading styles that you want. Now let's go ahead and preview this. As you can see, our form is beginning to take in shape, and there is something else that I want you to know here, which is adding a page. Now pages are basically what allows you to add in multi-step levels to your form, as I mentioned earlier. So let's go ahead and add a new page. Now once you add a new page, you can see that instead of submit, it changes to next. And that means that when you click on this next, it brings you to this next page of your form before you submit, and you can go back and click on back, and that's going to bring you back to the first part of your form. And then on the left side, you can see we have the first page, and here when you click on this icon, you can go ahead and rename and change this to contact information. And for the next page, which is page 2, you can change this and call this other details. All right, so let's begin to add in here other details. And here when you scroll down, you can see that we have the choices, and here is a single choice. We have the multi-choice. People can select more than one item, and here we have the drop down, we have the tag picker, and we have the checkbox. So I'm going to go ahead and use a single selection here. Now this is a more detailed option for the single selection. Here we're going to change this field title to gender, and you can go ahead and click on this to hide this field from your form. And the first option, we can change this to male. The second option, we can change this to female. And here, if you click on this option here, you can either move this down, or you can also go ahead and check this by default. So that's going to be selected by default, but we don't want that. So let's uncheck that. And you can also go ahead and delete this field if you don't want the field to be there. And you can go ahead and add more options. So let's go ahead and delete that last option. And if you have so many options, you can go ahead and simply add more options to your single selection. Now, since we only need 2 of them, let's go ahead and delete and click on save. Another thing you can do is to click on other. You can toggle the other one on, and this is going to allow the user to click on other, and once they do, a new field is going to pop up, allowing them to enter in the custom option that they have. So let's leave that on, and here we're going to make this a required field. And again, you can also go ahead and use the field description if you want to, and here we have different columns that we can use. I think a single or one column is perfect for this. And we have the PII, or personally identifiable information. These are sensitive information such as your passport info, addresses, and so on, and this is going to add an extra layer of protection for that particular field. And since this is not a sensitive field, then there is no need to toggle that on. Now when you get over to the advanced, there is no option here now, but you can feel free to use any of these elements for your form depending on what you want the form to do. Now, as you know, this is just a simple contact information form, so we're not collecting too many information from the user. Now the next thing I want to go in and collect is the position. So this is going to ask them for their job role and job description. So we're going to change this from position to job role, and here we can say we want this to be a required field, and we also want to add a placeholder text. Now this is a PII, and you can leave it toggled on. You can disable it if you don't think it is, and you can also go ahead and limit the character. Now finally, I'm going to add in a long answer, and the long answer here is where the user will add in more details. So here I'm going to say message. Now the message is going to be where the user will let us know more details about what they're contacting us for. And this doesn't need to be required as long as we have their email and their first names, and we can always get back to them with more information. So let's go ahead and toggle on the placeholder text, and we can leave the field description as is, and in advanced we can limit the character and so on. Now this is the basics of what we want this form to do. We don't want it to be so overwhelming. It's just going to be a very simple tutorial to show you how to use the Wix form builder. Now here is going to be other details. This is the heading of this particular field. I'm going to make that bold. I'm going to drag this in and say please fill out all required fields. Great. And we can also do the same for this one. So let's go ahead and make that bold. Now you can change the heading or make it italic or even add a link. You can align it to any part of your form and so on. All right, so we are done with your form, and the last thing we want to check out is adding a rule, and I'm going to show you how to use the rules. Before we continue here, if you enjoyed the tutorial so far, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and also leave this video a like. And let's come back to these rules. And the rules are basically conditional logics that you want to automate within your form, and I'm going to show you a practical example on how to use a rule. So I'm going to go over to add elements and over to layouts elements. I'm going to drag this text just right below the email field, and what I want to do is I want to change the content of this text and say thanks for your email, we will get back to you using this email. Now I want to hide this text until they fill out the email field. So once they fill out the email field, then this text is going to show up, and here is where we use the rules to make that conditional decision. So let's head over to rules, and we're going to say that the email, if the email is filled out, then we want the thank you email element here to be shown, and then click on save. So you can go ahead and play around with the rules and see how you can use that for yourself. If you go over to preview, you can see the text is hidden until I go ahead and fill out or start filling out this particular field. So here you can also go ahead and view the layer on mobile, so you can see how this looks on mobile. This isn't looking bad at all. So let's go to settings, and here, as you know, we have the general settings already covered. All right, so here we have the confirmation message, and this is the message that shows up after the user has submitted or successfully submitted the form. Now you can choose to show a message or redirect them to a URL, or you can decide to clear the form, simply clear the form. What I want to do is to show a message, and here the message is going to show up just right below the form saying thanks, we received your message. And here you can beef up the text to what you want. You can add and make it bold, italic, just configure what the message is, or add a link to a particular page on your website or to an external page, or any action you want them to perform right after they have submitted the form. Now the message should show up for 8 seconds, but you can change this to 10, or you can decide to always show this message. But for me, I'm going to leave it to show up for only 10 seconds. And the next part we have is the notifications and the automations. Now we're going to come back to this particular part because this is going to be our next phase, or the next phase of our tutorial. Next we have the payment setup. So this is for people, or you, if you want to use your form to collect payments, and you can simply do that by going back to edit, and here under the payment tabs you can select any of these payment elements and use it to collect payment from your site users. So you can try to add a payment amount to this particular form, and this is going to be a fixed payment that they must make when submitting this form. Or you can decide to ask them to submit a custom amount, and you can choose what the amount is, and the minimum, you can choose what the minimum is, and you can also choose what the maximum is. Now you can also decide to use it for a donation, so this could be fixed amount, and you can also go ahead and allow them to enter in custom amounts. The payment part is only for you if you're using this payment element. So let's head back to our settings and scroll back down. So if you think you're going to use your form for payment, then you need to fill out or add the elements, and you also need to connect the payments, which is going to need you to have a paid plan for your Wix or Wix Studio websites, and also to connect payment method where you're going to receive your payouts. So we're going to go ahead and save, and once you save, it's going to keep all your settings. And next we have the spam filter. Always make sure that you leave it at advanced, and reCAPTCHA, this is going to make sure that bots or spammers don't go on submitting the form without passing the validation or the reCAPTCHA challenge. All right, here we have the form status, which allows you to manage how you want the form visibility on your website, or you want only certain amount of people to submit. Then this is where you set it. For the set expiration date, this is when you choose to show the form on your page for a particular amount of time. So you can choose to say, okay, you want to stop this showing this form on the 16th of March or on the 15th of March, and you can go ahead and choose what time you want the form to stop showing up. And you can also go around here and add in the message that you want and say, sorry, but this form is now closed. And you can tell them to do something else, like reach out to us if you think you need to submit something, or get back to us on something. And here you can also limit the number of submissions. So if you say you want only 100 people, maybe this is going to be like a review, or this is just going to be like a user testing or something. You can go ahead and set how many people or how many submissions you want to be able to get your response. So since this is a contact form, we don't need to limit how the form is submitted. And here is the information on the language and regional format for your form, or what your form works with. Now go ahead and click on save, and this brings us to the next part or phase of our tutorial, which is the notification and automation. Now, as you can see, we have one already created, which is new submission received for contact form, which is the name of our form. Now I'm going to give this a different name so that we'll be able to identify that this is for us. So I'm going to call this Wix Ideas, and when we click on save, we can come back to our automation and click on edit. Now this is going to bring us to the Wix automation, which you can also get to from your Wix dashboard, and you can scroll down to the automations, and over here in the automations you can see here created by you. These are created yourself when you click on new automation, and you have the one installed for you, which Wix created automatically for you for notifications. As you can see, we have this particular one, which is the new submission received for contact form Wix Ideas. We click on view summary, and here we get a very short summary of what this form is for. It's submitted, is installed for you, created by this time, and you can see we have only 0 triggers. That means no notification has gone out, never triggered, and the summary is the trigger is the Wix form, and the step that we have is to send an email. So you can simply edit this automation, you can toggle it off, or you can simply duplicate, rename, view stats, or delete. So let's go ahead and edit our automation. As you can see, that's exactly what we have on this page, and here we have the ability to click on the trigger. So the trigger is when we submit a form. So select which forms trigger for this automation. So the trigger is for a specific form, and we select a specific form, and since we only have one form, which is contact form Wix Ideas, then we can select that, and trigger once per person. So we don't need to trigger this once per person because each time you submit a form, we always want to send out an email. Now when you click on send an email, this is the action. This is what happens when the form is triggered. And if you're using a paid plan, as you can see, this is the email that we're using. This is the default email for a free plan, no reply, wixsiteautomations.com. If you have a plan and a business email, then you can definitely use your business email, and this is going to change the email that is sent out by Wix. So I'm going to change the sender's name to Wix Ideas, and I'm going to leave the reply to email at wixnobles@gmail.com. So click on save. Now an authentication code or confirmation code has been sent out to my email. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that. All right, so this is the authentication email, verification email. I'm going to go ahead and copy that and paste that to change the email that is the reply to email, and click on save. Now you can see we have the sender's details all filled out and the reply to email filled out. If you've already done this, you don't need to do that again, but you can of course check it out if this is the information you want to receive or you want your site users to receive. So the action is to create an email, and here we have the email from Wix, a default email from Wix. And before we click on edit, let's go back to the set email type, and the email type here is business critical. So this is saying that recipients are unable to mute these emails and they are sent regardless of the recipient's consent to receive emails. So this is a forced email. We're always going to send out this email regardless if the user wants to receive it or not. And here we have the set recipient. All right, so who is going to receive this email? That's what the set recipient part is. And when you click on this recipient, here we have the collaborator, and the collaborator is the owner. The owner of the site is the person who is going to receive this email. Now you can choose to add more people in your organization by adding more people from your role. So if you have maybe an admin or co-owner of the site, then you can add that, or you can also decide to add a contact. So you can, if you have many contacts, you can search for them and simply click on them and add. So they will receive that email, or emails from triggers. So we have an email in our trigger, and this is a primary email address or the contact ID that was created, but this is the email field that we added. So you remember when we added the email field. So let's head back to our form. All right, so let's go to customers and leads and go to forms and submissions, and here we have our form. So let's click on our form, and here is the email field that we created, and we click on settings and go to advanced. So you can see this is our field key email underscore 7cc4, and that is this field. So we don't want to send this email to this particular person because we want to customize this email. This email is only going to send out to me or the site owner. So let's go ahead and click on edit email. So let's take a look at the templates that we have to edit the email. Great. So this is the email that I'm going to receive when there is a new submission on my page. And we have this kind of variable or some kind of personalized item which says that the form name got a new submission, and a site visitor just submitted your form to the form name. So the form name I gave to my form is contact form Wix Ideas. So it's going to tell me that Wix Ideas just received, or contact form Wix Ideas just got a new submission, and you can simply just go ahead and change this text and also change this text. Another thing you can do here is to personalize this and add any field from your form. Now there are different fields. We have the form name, the submission date and time, submission ID, submission link, form ID, first name, email, last name, gender, and so many more. So these are all the things that we have in our form. And here is the body which you can always make use of. And here we have a site visitor just submitted your form. This is the form name, and here we have the form on the website, the website name. So these are variables that we fill out automatically with actual data eventually, but you can feel free to always add and edit or customize the look and feel of your email. And here we have the view submissions. So whenever there is a submission on your website through this form, you can always head back to the submissions here, and the table is going to show you all the submissions made to this particular form, and the link is going to bring you to that particular item. All right, so I'm not going to be doing much on the design for this particular one. So I'm going to go ahead and save and continue. So I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to say admin's new submission received for contact form Wix Ideas, and go ahead and publish that. Now my automation has been created for me, which is the admin. And next I have to create another automation for the customer, which is the person who submitted the form. So go to new automation, go to start from scratch, and here I'm going to go ahead and search for the trigger, and this is going to be Wix form. So here's the Wix forms. So form submitted, click on form submitted. I'm going to change which form to specific. Select. I'm going to go ahead and select my form. Okay, I'm going to leave that unchecked. Apply. And the next is the action. So the action is going to send an email. Now you see here our sender details are still what it was from the beginning. And again, I'm going to go over to email type, and I'm going to change this to a business critical because I want them to receive this email regardless. And here you can see it automatically selects emails from trigger. This is what I want. But I also want to make sure that this is the email from the field that I created. So I'm going to change this from the primary email address to the email field on my form. So go ahead and click on apply, and here is the email. So go ahead and click on edit email. Now this is the email that you send out to your customers. So you want to go ahead and play around with this and say thank you for getting in touch, and then you can go ahead and personalize and add their first name. Now remember that we made the first name a required field. So here select the first name and click on applied. So that means that they will always receive their first name because the first name field is required and the email is required as well. So we're always going to send out this email to the customer. Now another thing you can do here is to add the text. So go ahead and add a text here, and this is the text where we're going to be adding the details of the form they submitted. So you can add this by going down to add personalized content right here, and then here you can choose all the things that you want to add. For example, you want to add their first name, go to add, and you can also go ahead and add things like their last name. If they added that last name, click on add, and you can also go ahead and add more items. So I'm just going to go ahead and add the gender they selected. I'm going to add the job role they selected right there, and I'm also going to add the message that they selected. So right on top, I'm going to say here is a summary of your submission. So basically you have the freedom of just describing what you want to do. They can always come back to you and you can design how this email should look like. So we have themes here, different themes that you can use. You can decide to use the site theme, which is looking like that, or you can decide to use a different design. I like using the light, that's looking great. You can also choose to change the background and many more. So you have the freedom to actually just personalize, and edit how this particular email looks like. And there is so much freedom for you to just add elements that you want to. And let's go ahead and save and continue. Now let's go ahead and also change this to say send customer email for contacts from Wix Ideas. All right, and activate. All right, so you can see here in the automations we have the send customer email for contact from Wix Ideas. This is created by you, and the installed for you is the admin new submission received for Wix Ideas. So now we are basically done with our fields and our form, and everything is all set. When we head over to the settings, I think everything is all working properly. Let's go ahead and close. Now this is still appearing as though there is no form, but don't worry about that. Go to settings, and over at the forms you're going to find all the forms you have built. So this means that you can use this form anywhere on your website, and as you can see it already took the design of our website, and we don't need to actually go in with the design and more. But when you click on setting, there are more things that you can do, including the layout. So you can decide to change any of the side patterns, the top and bottom patterns, spacing between rows and more. You can also change the design, change the colors that you want. But I'm pretty happy with what Wix has done with this because I don't need to design this all over again, right? So here we have the ability to also manage forms, or also to create new forms. So at any point in time, you can create a different form and change or replace this form right here. And you can also use this form anywhere on your website. So you can totally go to a whole different page on your website. Let's go to the home page, and you can just go over to add elements, and you can go to contact forms and go to add existing form, and just simply go ahead and add an existing form. Now this would add a new form for you, and here you can go ahead and choose the form that you built out, and it's going to take the design and the shape of your website. So you can just go ahead and add this form anywhere, and you can also design it once and apply the changes to every part of your website where you have that form. So let's just go ahead and take a look at our form, and let's go ahead and publish this and view it on the live site and test out what we have here. All right, so here is our form, and we're about to start adding in our details. I'm just going to go ahead and add my first name. I don't need to add my last name. I'm going to go ahead and add my email. So as you can see, it says enter an email address like this. Now as you can see, when I fill out the form, I have these things for your email. We'll get back to you using this email for the rules that we added. Let's go to next, click on the gender and add the job role, Wix Ideas, and click on submit. Now this form has been submitted. Thanks, we received your submission. So I should receive a submission on my email, at least 2 submissions on my email. And the first one is for thanks for getting in touch. This is sent to me because I submitted the form. So I've received this email, and I've also received this form because my email address was used for the owner of the site. So I've received 2 emails from Wix. The first one is for the admin, which is this one right here, and the second one is to me who submitted the form, thanking me for submitting the form. Now I've shown you how to set up this step by step, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Now you can always use the Wix form builder to build out a form and send an email to anyone in your organization, or to also send an email to your customers or clients. Now, if this tutorial was a massive help for you, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and leave me a comment in the comment section if you have any questions regarding any feature of these Wix forms. Thank you very much, and I will see you later.